Hello and welcome to the Rankers once again. I'm here with Stuart McPhee, once again looking at the greatest year in pop culture, in our opinion anyway, 1994. This last time we looked at the top 10 albums from 1994. This time we're looking at the top 10 movies from 1994. How are you tonight, Stuart?
All right, you son of a bitch, I'm good. And in our last episode, you're right, we did talk about our top 10 albums, and I think we both had Live Throwing Copper in there at some point.
We did.
Now,
We did.
am I right in thinking you just recently went and saw Live at a part of a mini festival?
I did on Sunday night, and most of the set was Throwing Copper, so I got another reissue of that, although only one original member still left standing of that band,
Which is
which
the
is,
lead singer, Ed,
yeah, which is
right?
Ed. Yeah. I think there was some shenanigans between the guitarist and his manager, and then that gave Ed a reason, I guess, to kick everyone out. But yeah, great show. Great show.
Excellent. Very good.
Again, those songs from Secret Samadhi are a little touch better, I think, and a little bit more fun to listen to.
Absolutely.
All right, before we get started, if you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe and all that mumbo jumbo that you hear on all those YouTube videos. The more you watch, the more we can get it out to people. And if you're on our traditional platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to us, once again, we thank you and we hope you enjoy this podcast. So, Stuart, 1994. So we did a little bit of a chat last time about the getting into music. I mentioned where that was the year 1994 where I moved away from my father's influences and started to get my own. You also mentioned something in a similar vein. What do you remember of this mid 90s period, in particular with the movies?
Yes, I was living in central Queensland at the time, which meant that our
One
cinema.
movie a year?
Sorry?
One movie a year? Got
One
out that way?
movie. Yeah, well, the cinema was pretty run down in the town, or the closest town that had a cinema, which is about a 30-minute drive away. And whilst the seats weren't necessarily Hessian sack style, they weren't that far off it. I don't remember seeing a great deal of movies at the cinema that year.
Yep.
It was very much a part of the world where, due to the lack of theatrical releases, meant that the video store was the way to go for the most part. So you're always about
Definitely.
6 months behind, 6 to 8 months behind. The only film that I remember watching from this year, and apologies if this does make your top 10, was I think it was the Santa Claus, and I reckon we watched it maybe at the Christmas Eve, and the reason was so that Dad could secretly build the portable basketball ring for us and backboard.
Yep.
So Mum took us to the movies for a couple of hours. I think I also may have seen The Mask, I reckon, in cinemas that year as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it wasn't a multiplex. It was a one screen place that was stiflingly hot. And didn't get a lot of love from me during our time there. So it was mainly video stores, and yeah, watching things a little bit on delay. What about yourself?
Yeah, very, very similar. I don't really think we were big going to the movies family at that point in time. My sister would have been maybe, well, she born 85, so she was 9, almost 10, so we couldn't really go and see anything that was any more than a kids movie, and
Yep.
they weren't really as big as what they are today. And I was also thinking, when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight, about how we talk about how 1994 was, for us, the peak of pop culture, particularly with music and movies. And I just really think like this probably was either the beginning of the peak or the middle of the peak of cinematic movies. So we didn't have streaming services. If you wanted to watch a movie and it wasn't in the cinema, you had to go to the video store and rent it out, all those sorts of things. So um, I guess these movie houses, without finding a better term for it, they had a lot more time, I guess, or a
Mm,
lot more willingness to let art do its thing. And
mm,
I think that's why we have that list of 1994 movies. There's such quality in there, because there was a little bit more freedom, and wasn't so much focused on that profit making. Obviously movies still had to make a profit, but it was more about the art of the movie. Whereas now it's just like bang them out. If they don't make money, that's the end of the franchise. Move on to something else, and it can kind of spit up and chew some people out a bit quicker than what it might have done in the 90s. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I think so. And if you think about a smaller market in terms of Australia, where there was obviously Australian content that was pushed to cinema, which meant that there were things that often would have had a release theatrically in the UK and the US, for example, as being our two other major markets, um, but not a release here meant that it eventually got the not even the first life. It was a second, or not a second life. It was the first life run on at your Blockbusters and Video Easies of the world. And because it was such a ritual to go there on a Friday evening, I was talking about my good friend Paul, who lives in the UK now. We're reminiscing about that feeling that you then had the world was your oyster. Where now a film that doesn't get released theatrically and is on a streaming service pretty much straight away will get lost
Mm,
amongst it all, because you're not going to a bricks and mortar place where you can scan the shelves and realize that the new releases all have all gone, and so you have to look for the things that are a little bit lower on the shelf, or uh, have moved to a 3 day rental, and you go, oh,
yeah.
okay, well that looks pretty good. I'll give that a crack. And certainly some of the things I would imagine on my top 10 wouldn't have been released in the cinema, even whether that be in central Queensland or whether it be in capital cities. So I think you're right in that sense, where movies had more time to breathe and
Mm.
find a home and find a place amongst the culture.
And I think there's a few movies from this year that may have not been a huge success in the cinema itself, and kind of got more of a following in that video rental market, and hence becoming I guess, the cult classics that they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably one film in particular that's the absolute epitome of that will likely appear on both
I'm
our.
guessing it's on both of our lists, so we don't want
Well,
to dive deep into that.
no. I mean, if we're both professional footballers, it'll be absolutely on our list, and there'd be no second guessing it. But yes, there's one that is, I think, as you said, a shining example of things that ultimately find a home.
Yeah. So we're recording here on the 10th of April, 2024, I should say. Um, Before we get started on our list, now, this is probably the hardest list or ranking that I've had to do so far since we started this little project of ours. I have my number one locked in, and I have a list 1 to 10, but I think this will be one of those times where I just go, no, that doesn't feel right. I'm going to move that one.
Yeah.
Um, I know we can sometimes come at these lists a little bit differently. I'm assuming, and I may be way off the mark here, that your taste is a bit more eclectic and a bit more arty, if we or pretentious, if we want to put it that way. Um, what was it back in the 90s? What was the anyway, yobbo or something like that. I can't quite think of the term that I'm trying to think of.
Mm.
Yobbo's not the right one that I'm thinking of. Whereas I'm more of a mainstream kind of person, which I think makes our list very interesting. And whenever we cross over, it's a nice discussion point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, so I really could not lock in that top 10. So yeah, mine could be a bit higgledy piggledy as
We'll
well.
see. Yeah, we'll see.
What about yourself? How have you attacked your 10?
Yeah, look, it was. You did send out a link of films from 1994 that were listed on IMDb. I also used. It can often feel like a crutch, but Wikipedia is usually a really good resource
Mm,
for these things, and
yep.
particularly because they also broke it up into where those films were from, which
Yep.
also helped. And then, so I started with a fairly long list, and then started to break down. some honourable mentions towards that I'll mention after if they don't come out in your list. And then I pretty much got the 10, and yeah, whilst I do have them in some sort of order, it's fair to say that apart from number one, they could all sort of jumble around. I think I've probably stuck my neck out on the number two, but that's probably a personal preference. The rest you could throw around anywhere, I guess.
Well, just before anyone starts atting me or something on our socials, I haven't ranked mine in quality of film. I've ranked mine in like my love of
Watchability.
or likability, yeah,
Yeah.
favoritism of film. So if there's a particular film you think is, as I should say, highbrow. Yuppie was the word I was trying to think of. I've just come up with
Right.
it. If you think it's a bit highbrow and a bit too low on the list, well, fuck you. I liked the ones lower, or higher on the list, I should say, a bit more. So there we go.
Excellent. Well, it seems you're
No, I'm not starting this time. You started. I started last time. Your turn to start.
Okay, so I'll start off with one of two basketball films on my list. And now, you talked about in the middle or the peak of culture. 1994 was really ramping up in terms of basketball films. And in fact, I then went on a deep dive to see the history of films where basketball was at least a plot, if not the secondary plot. And there, from my memory, there were 3 basketball-related releases this year. Sorry, 4. One was a documentary, Hoop Dreams, which isn't on my list, and I assume it's not on yours. The Kevin Bacon vehicle, The Air Up There, also not on my list, but this one is, and it was probably on the long list in terms of the soundtrack for our 1994 music episode, and that is Above the Rim. So Above the Rim, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is set in New York. It's about a high school basketballer who is aiming very much to get into college, play ball for, I think, for Georgetown, and then gets involved with playing essentially a street ball, semi-organized street ball competition for a team run by a street thug and drug dealer called Birdie, played by renowned actor and sometimes rapper Tupac Shakur. For those who haven't seen Tupac act, and I think that his list of films is probably just under 10 before he passed, or has he passed? Is this a conspiracy theory episode on Tupac? No, let's move on. Tupac is a very, very, very good actor, and he's great in this. It is very much about the lead up to this street ball tournament, and whether this young guy who was played by Dwan Martin, who was also in White Man Can't Jump, he was one of the 2-on-2 participants, and him being caught between that and trying to focus on what he needs to do to get into college. It also has Tupac's the character of Birdie, his brother, comes back into it, who's a fine basketballer in his day, and he then starts to coach Kyle, the young kid, and so it's a really, really great film about not only about basketball but about trying to keep on the straight and narrow. Excellent soundtrack, some really great basketball, and really well shot as well. So Above the Rim is my number 10.
Excellent. I don't think I've seen that one. I'm a bit more familiar with the Kevin Bacon one.
Yep.
But yeah, excellent. Nice. I don't have that on my list, by the way.
No.
My number 10 is Dumb and Dumber.
Excellent.
I probably don't need to speak too much on the synopsis about this one. It's probably one of the more famous Jim Carrey movies. Also had Jeff Daniels, who I think in the same year also did a very more serious role, which I'm not going to talk about because it may be on our list a bit later on, but was kind of making a turn into comedic acting. And I can't remember if he made it onto either of our most versatile Hollywood actors list, but
I didn't.
he'd have to be up there
Mm-hmm.
because I think we only did a top five anyway.
Yes.
Um, but anyway, Dumb and Dumber, you got Lloyd and Harry, who really do live up to their name of Dumb and Dumber. You know, they're down on their luck. And then is it Lloyd who is the chauffeur driver and needs to throw a shrimp on the barbie. And Lauren Holly's character Mary leaves a suitcase behind, and anyway, it's just about them trying to return this suitcase because Lloyd. So you're telling me there's a chance? Thinks that he's a chance with Mary. Anyway, chaos ensues, and the two of them get up to absolute crazy stuff. Harry, I think, licks a pole at some point in a snowfield and gets his tongue stuck on it. They wear outrageous suits. There's a car covered like a dog. Just anything and everything you could ask for in a comedy,
Yep.
And that's why it makes my top 10 in at number 10. I'm assuming it didn't make your list.
Well, I've never seen it, and you've just spoiled it for me. So no,
Oh, are you
unless you're
serious?
no, absolute high point for Jim Carrey. 3 films this year. Mask I'd already
Yes.
mentioned, Dumb and
Yes.
Dumber, and I won't mention the third one in case you've already got it on your list.
We'll
No,
see.
okay.
We'll see.
But yes, a really strong year for Jim Carrey. You couldn't move for a new release coming out. Which I mean, 3 films in 1 year is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and particularly given his physical comedy at the time,
Yeah,
particularly with that and The Mask, it must have been a big year for him.
absolutely. Excellent. My number 9 is Jim Cameron's True Lies. Is this on your list?
Oh, I do have it on my list now. Given that I don't have a
Where are you going to
set
put it?
list yet, I'm going to put it a little bit higher.
Okay, very good. So you're number 9, sir.
Is one that you mentioned earlier, the Santa Claus.
Very good.
Yes. I people who know me will know I kind of get unfairly criticized for being a bit of a Christmas Grinch. I love everything about Christmas except the Christmas carols. So Christmas movie always gets me, and this is one of my favorites. It is so rewatchable. Tim Allen, I think in his sort of like wheelhouse, really, this sort of character. And he just really takes on the role really well. The son, can't remember who plays his role, does it really well as well. And the Judge Reinhold, I think, is the new. I'm not sure if they're married yet.
Not yet, no.
But, the stepfather to be.
Yep.
And all the characters are great. The actors who play the elves are great as well. Just a really fun, engaging storyline. So this Christmas just gone, actually took the kids through the 3 movies, and we got about 3/4 of the way through the new Disney Plus TV series as well. So it was really fun to watch that one with the kids as well. Like I said, this is not a highbrow list of any point, it's just the most rewatchable movies I found from this year, and a really fun movie.
Yeah, it is. My guy David Krumholtz as Bernard the Elf is.
Oh yes, so
he's
good.
just been. I love him in everything that he does. Krumholtz.
Yes, even though he was a bit of a villain in ER, but we won't hold that against him.
No, absolutely not.
Possibly a little spoiler for any future Christmas-related rankings that we do.
Yes, I'll put a pin in that. We'll see you later in the year. So my number 8 is the other basketball film, and that is Blue Chips.
Yep.
Blue Chips, directed by bizarrely William Friedkin, who did The French Connection and The Exorcist, but written by Ron Shelton, who wrote White Man Can't Jump, also wrote Bull Durham, also wrote Tin Cup. So you can see where we're going here. Knows how to write a sports film. Blue Chips is very much, if Above the Rim is about high school basketball, Blue Chips is very much about the continuing issues with college basketball in 2 different facets. one around the paying of players to come join college teams, and
Yep.
that's not just um, limited to basketball. That's all major college sports. And the other thing around gambling and point shaving. Nick Nolte is the coach. It's one of his, I think, great performances. If you have 4 minutes of your time, go just type in YouTube after watching us on YouTube. Nick Nolte, Blue Chips, basically the halftime speech. It is just phenomenal. He is angry, cantankerous, but has just so much passion for the players and what he thinks is the program that's running, as opposed to what is actually happening in the machinations, including the always oily JT Walsh as one of the sort of donors of the university, and one of the friends of the university. Ed O'Neill as the journalist is great. Includes actual then almost professional basketballs at the time, Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. Quick cameo by Larry Bird. It's I think people focus too much on the fact that Shaq was in it, but it's when you think of it more as of a Nick Nolte film, you then realize the how great a script and production it was. So yeah, Blue Chip's my number 8.
Ed Neal sort of had that little period there where he played some really great character actors in
Yeah,
between. What was it, Married with Children and Modern Family? Just had
yeah.
some really nice roles. And interesting to get your thoughts. Like on a movie like this, do you think it might have served them better to stay away from recognized sports stars and and had those roles played by actors, or do you think
I
it
think
still
it
serves its purpose?
yeah, it certainly helped when it came to the basketball itself and the essentially the choreography of it, which is a thing which can often let you down. I think they just had when you think about White Man Can't Jump and the fact that Woody Harrelson could play basketball, but Wesley Snipes couldn't, they had to really work at different camera angles and a lot of judicious editing. Where with something like this, they could essentially just have have a game play out and be able to shoot it. Yeah, I think it was the fact that Shaq was a larger than life, still is a larger than life character, but when he came into the league at that particular time, and I think this was already in the bag, if I'm remembering the timing correctly, meant that it was one of those things where as soon as the film producers or the companies get a hold of it, they go, well, this is how we're going to market this film. Shaq doesn't have a lot of speaking time on or lines in the film as you may assume from the poster. But I think if I don't think, given his character, you would have needed someone just as larger than life as him, but
Yeah.
couldn't play basketball. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool. So I'm assuming he didn't play himself. He played a scripted character.
yeah.
Yeah. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I've seen it.
As much as you can play. So yeah, no, they all people like Larry Bird played themselves, but
Yep.
certainly Shaq played a character. Same with Penny Hardaway.
Okay. All right. Once again, not a highbrow list here, but my number 8 is Time Cop.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I know. I thought that would surprise you.
Mm. Mm.
Now, there's
No.
reasons for
What?
this.
Only because I've got my time cop higher. So
Oh, you've got it on your
no,
list.
I got you
No,
twice.
I didn't think so.
No.
You got me. It's
Mm.
not April 1st here, Stuart.
Sorry.
Now, there's a big story behind this one. So back in around this time, I think we used to have movie marathons. Used to be a big thing, and the Boxing Day movie marathon used to be the thing. My mum and I would often go to these ones after a day of watching cricket. Head off to we usually at my grandmother's place at Caloundra at the time, so we'd head off to the either the Maroochydore Cineplex there and get in a 3 movie marathon that usually start about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And I remember the one we chose to go to this time, and Time Cop was the third movie, and we're like, well, if it's not any good, we can, we've been there for a while, we can leave quite early. So anyway, Time Cop comes on. We're like, oh, we're getting a bit tired, and we decide, oh, we'll stick it out for a couple of minutes and see how it goes. And we were just hooked from the opening. So for those that don't know, Time Cop is a John Claude Van Damme classic, where he plays a cop from the future, and he goes back in time to solve cases and things like that. But what happens is that a criminal entity, again, it's been a while since I've seen it, they somehow get back and they start committing crimes. For instance, at the start, there's a sort of like a Western, horse and cart sort of scene, and they're just about to do the shoot 'em up, and instead of using pistols, they're using rifles and M16s and things like that. Watching it again more recently doesn't have the CGI to hold up to it, but the basic story is still there. And again, I'm not looking for best movie here. I'm just looking for rewatchable and favorite movies from this year. Not
Excellent.
a fan of Time Cop.
If we're doing top 5 Van Damme movies, I don't think it would make it.
Oh, come on.
There'd be others in there above Time Cop. But there you go. This is why we have such a diverse list. And I think Time Cop is probably the best segue into my number 7, which is the Australian film The Sum of Us.
Yes.
Which I think was mentioned on when you put the call out to get people's thoughts about 94 films. I think 1 or 2 people may have mentioned Sum of Us.
Yep.
So Jack Thompson.
It's on my list at 7 too. So.
Oh, there you go. Excellent. So Jack Thompson, Russell Crowe playing father and son. Jack Thompson breaking the fourth wall many a time with quick asides and telling us essentially narrating the story about how he is working through quite admirably given the time and the setting, keeping in mind this is a film from 1994 about how his son is gay and how his son is navigating the dating scene in the 90s in Sydney. And I think, I certainly don't know about you, but remember watching it at the time and noting that what felt like a refreshing take on not only about homosexuality, but also father-son relationships. And early Russell Crowe, who was, I think, fantastic in it, so is Jack Thompson. John Paulson as the main suitor, who would then go on to be the helicopter pilot for Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 2 and also be a director in his own right. Great Aussie soundtrack as well. And the third act then becomes less about the issues relating to Russell Crowe's character being gay, but more about needing to support his father and having that relationship come first because of events that happen in the film.
Yeah.
It's quite a bittersweet and essentially sad way that the film ends. But I think it's one of the more sort of original takes on the father-son dynamic and also homosexuality in the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. And was this before or after Romper Stomper?
I think Romper Stomper maybe the same year. I can't remember it coming up on the list, or maybe Romper Stomper was 93. So
okay, because this was my first introduction to Russell Crowe. I
think same here.
Romper Stomper after it. Ironically, my dad took me to the cinema to see this. I don't think he knew the exact subtext of the movie when he took
Mm-hmm.
me to take, unless he was trying to send me a message or something. I'm not sure.
Mm.
Um, but I really liked the Russell Crowe was awesome. I've always really um, liked his work.
Yeah.
Even in some of the lesser good stuff like Unhinged, like still he's just an actor, obviously, but
Mm.
a really good one. And I really like how he portrays this character, um, and how he still plays footy, still like a masculine bloke, but um, yeah, which is without getting into anything too political here. Not, I guess at that time wasn't how homosexual men were seen. But yeah, you're right. It's all about that relationship between the father and the son, and yeah, such a quality movie, and just proof that Australia does quality movies.
Absolutely. And it's I'm not quite sure. It feels like Rob Stomple was the thing that got him the gigs overseas, but yeah, I'd be interested to know how what sort of the viewership has been of some of us, and I think it's probably up for a critical reappraisal, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now that we're
That
both
was my
done,
7 as well. So we're
yep.
up to your 6.
Okay, my 6 is Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh, no, I don't have that one on my list.
Don't have it on your list.
Talk
So,
away.
When we speak about the first time you see an actor, this is obviously the first. Well, not obviously, but it was the first time I saw Hugh Grant, who I think the weird trivia was that his other big film this year, being Sirens, was released the same day in the States. Sirens is not on my list, and I apologise if it's on your list,
No,
Carl.
it's not.
Four Weddings and Funeral, written by Richard Curtis, he of Love Actually fame and Notting Hill fame. It's pretty much starts the British rom-com boom. Unfortunately, it gives us Wet, Wet, Wet's Lovers All Around that we then had to re-endure with Love Actually, which is also, I'm assuming, on your Christmas list, Carl.
Never seen it.
Never seen it. Wow. Hugh Grant, absolute star-making performance. I don't need to tell you the plot of this film because it's in the title. David Haig, who plays, I think his name's Bernard in this as well. So I've got a thing with Bernard's. He is great. Great cast. Kristen Scott Thomas, Andy McDowell, John Hamm.
Does Rowan Atkinson make
Yeah,
in this one?
yeah. Rowan Atkinson plays one of the priests. I think he says awfully wedded wife from memory. Very, very funny film. Enjoy it every time I get a chance to see it, and also obviously with the second part of the film title, also sad in places. But there you go.
Yeah, look, probably a better movie than Time Cop, but not on my favourites list.
Okay, well, yeah, there's no time jumping in this one, although it's it is set out in different increments of the summer when there's weddings. So there you go.
Okay, what am I up to? Number 6. Let me see. What shall I pick? I'm going to go with a Harrison Ford movie here in Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah, you are, but you're also going to have to hold off because that's high for me.
Okay, fair enough. So your number 5 then?
My number 5 is the Kevin Smith debut, Clerks. Is this on your list?
Nope.
Not on your list. Okay. So as some of you may know, I worked 8-9 years in a record store in the 2000s. Many people assume that I based my entire persona working in that store on high fidelity. I assure you it was based entirely on the two reprobates, Randall and Dante from Clerks. One works in the video store, one works at the actual convenience store next door. It is the epitome of slacker culture, of talking about inane shit with your mates for hours on end whilst ignoring customers, involving the customers at times. Um, whilst I never closed up the a convenience store to go play hockey on the roof, um, I
You would have closed the record store early for some
no, but
shenanigans.
the one rule that I did have is that it was suggested not to engage with me until I had my morning coffee. And once that caffeine, that sweet dark mother, was coursing through my veins, only then was I willing to participate in commerce. But until then, you can go get stuffed. Clerks shot in black and white. I think Kevin Smith maxed out 3-4 credit cards to pay for this,
Worth
and
it in
then
the end.
you're worth it. And then of course the two idiots in Jay and Silent Bob who appear in this then appear in a string of other films that are then loosely connected: Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and there you go. I think they end up doing a Clerks 2, which was okay. Clerks 3 I haven't seen, but the original is still the best.
Yeah, it's a really good film. For me, you've got to be in the right mood to watch it, though. It's not just something you can chuck on.
Yep.
I got introduced to it late, though. My first introduction to that sort of universe was Jay and Silent Bob.
That must have been confusing, though.
No,
To watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and not see all the other films in the. I guess you can appreciate it on one level, but
yeah, I really like that film.
So do I.
I probably didn't get the references to the other movies, but
Yeah.
the movie itself was still fun.
Mm.
And then it kind of, I think, and I only watched Chasing Amy like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd definitely seen Clerks. That maybe that was second or third, and then kind of filled in those Swiss cheese holes that I had from Jay and Silent Bob. But yeah, no, good choice.
Excellent. And of course, Jay and Silent Bob has the sequel to Good Will Hunting, Good Will Hunting 2, Hunting Season.
That's such a good scene. Every time that pops up on my feed, I still watch it.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right. So what are you up to? My number 5?
We are.
So I have Pulp Fiction as my number 5.
Mm-hmm. That's my number 1.
Yes. Okay. All right.
In fact, I don't know why I said number 1. I should just
give it away.
Yep.
All right. Well, your number 4.
Yeah, my number 4 I'm not even going to mention because I know it's going to be higher on your list. So we'll move on to your number 4.
Are you sure? Okay. All right.
It's a Stephen King adaptation.
Oh yeah. That's definitely higher on mine. Well, my number 4 is The Client.
Oh, okay, yeah. John Grisham film?
Yeah. Not on your list?
It's not on my list, no.
Okay. I was... So, bit of a backstory. I wasn't a big reader until I got to high school, and I think it was either year 8 or year 9, and one of our required readings was Jurassic Park, and still my favorite... Oh, hang on, giving away a spoiler for any future book-related rankings that we do. Still my favorite book of all time. Of course, the movie was pretty close to the book as well. Excellent movie. So that got me into a love of reading and merged me into John Grisham, who became one of my favorite authors, probably my favorite, therefore, at some point in time. And I really think the adaptations of his books lend well to an adaptation to a movie. You just got that. I love a courtroom drama. There's just something about that fictitious American courtroom that just really gets me intrigued. I recently rewatched the one with Matthew McConaughey.
Time to Kill?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
I think Mississippi Burning might be one of his as well, The Chamber. So there's a heap out there. I think this might be the first of his adaptations. Maybe Gingerbread Man might have been before it.
No, I think The Firm was done before this.
Oh, Firm. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting this one right, this is the one with Tom Cruise?
No, The Client's with Tommy Lee Jones, I think.
Tommy Lee Jones, yeah. Anyway, just a real quality John Grisham movie adaptation, and one that can be rewatched a lot.
Very good. So that takes us to number 3.
Yes.
And can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Pop quiz hot shot.
Okay, here we go.
There's a bomb in a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb
Yep.
is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, you asked my wife because if she was doing this ranking, this would definitely be in her top 10.
And this isn't on your top 10 at all?
Nope.
Wow, there you go. So I'm talking about Speed.
Yep.
The
I knew what you were
Keanu.
talking about.
Yeah, I'm well aware. The Keanu Reeves classic. Dennis Hopper. First time I think I saw Sandra Bullock as well, from memory.
Yeah, I think it was her
Yeah,
first real vehicle. Yeah.
yeah, star making turn. This is one of the great premises for a movie. Bomb on a bus. It goes over 50 miles an hour. It's armed. Goes below 50, it blows up, and you're in LA. It's fantastic. What more do you want?
Yeah,
Um,
LA, which is known for its public transport.
Yeah, absolutely. Which makes the cast of characters on it even better, including my boy Alan Ruck from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and then later the much later this Succession. This is just a fun film. Whilst it has been a while since I've seen it, you mentioned Jeff Daniels
This
doing
was a
the
serious role.
yeah. Well, and I always remember what we refer to amongst my group of friends as the Jeff Daniels chin wobble, as when he realizes that he's in the house with the bomb just about to go off. Which was sort of. I mean, I know Jeff Daniels wasn't a huge star, but the fact that that he is out of the movie after 20-25 minutes or whatever was something that was really unexpected. I remember maybe I did see this in the theater. There's no way we waited for home video for this. But there you go.
Sort of like there's a movie with Steven Seagal and Kurt Russell, and they're both billed as the
Yeah,
main actors, and I think it's Kurt Russell goes within the first 5 minutes or something. So
yeah, that's this is going to stretch me. Executive Decision.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the and this started the whole. Well, I think Die Hard started it, but it was Die Hard. It was Speed, technically Die Hard on a bus, and then you had Passenger 57 and Executive Decision, where it was, well, this is just Speed on a plane, or unfortunately Speed 2 Cruise Control, which I don't think I ever bothered to watch.
I saw that in the cinema.
Did you? You were the one, huh?
Yeah, I was. Hey, you're forgetting Air Force One.
Oh, of course, Air Force One. Yeah, that was more Die Hard on a plane as well.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And Seagal also, let's not forget Under Siege, which was Die Hard on a Navy warship. Just solid stuff.
Now, before you can continue, there are rumors that there will be a Speed 3 with Keanu Reeves returning.
Really? Has anyone checked on Jason Patrick's state of mental health? Missing out on the third one there.
It's really interesting. Sorry that I'm interrupting you again, but this film with both Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves being quite young in their careers for this movie are still seen as maybe not A-listers as such, but can still get those quality movies. Whereas, other people or other actors from around that time, like John Travolta to a certain degree, Nicolas Cage, even Bruce Willis, are now B and C grade movie actors. So they've both been able to, stay on that high level.
Yeah, it's whilst, and I think Keanu Reeves has been, I think, lucky in that the roles that he's picked, he's then gotten that second or third wave. So if you think about, there's a little bit of a lull, then The Matrix at the end of the 90s, and then there's probably missing some stuff in between, but then certainly getting John Wick then helped continue his rise. So yeah, great film. As I said, it has been a while since I've seen it, but I wouldn't mind going back and rewatching. So there you go.
Yeah,
Speed at
no,
number 3.
that's a great film.
Yep.
All right, my number 3 is one that you mentioned earlier, True Lies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's on your list, right?
It is, yeah.
Number 8.
Number 9. Number 9.
All right, well, you go first then.
Jim Cameron film. I think probably my last favorite Jim Cameron film. Titanic was fine. I watched the first Avatar. I can't tell you what it was about. And I have no desire to watch the second one or the next 16 installments of the Avatar franchise. This, I believe, was based on a French film, so it's not an original idea, but Schwarzenegger's certainly at his the peak of his Imperial phase. Jamie Lee Curtis just killing it, figuratively, literally. Great side acting by Paxton, as always.
He's so good in this movie.
And it's Tom Arnold as well.
Tom Arnold.
He's
for me, he's the star of the movie. Like,
yeah.
You know, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's the top billing, but Tom Arnold, he just makes this movie.
Exactly. And speaking of Imperial phase, Tia Carrera, obviously.
Before or after Wayne's World?
After Wayne's World, but maybe before Wayne's World 2, I can't recall. Anyway, there you go. It's really great.
An early performance for, is that
Eliza Dushku? Yeah, as the daughter. Yep.
Yeah.
We don't have to explain the plot of True Lies to anyone, do we?
It's a spy comedy, I guess. Yeah. Where Arnold Schwarzenegger is obviously the spy, but he also has a family, and his wife thinks he's a boring computer, operator at some boring office. So she's tantalized to start an affair, and so he starts following her, and chaos ensues from there.
Yes.
Bombs and terrorists and all that sort of stuff. Typical, spy comedy.
Yeah.
At its best.
Yeah.
This is such a rewatchable film. And you can watch it anytime, any mood. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Arnold, the secret sauce. Absolutely.
There's actually, I don't know if you've ever seen it. Oh, what's it called? I think it's called Future Boy, or Future Man, and it's with the guy from Hunger Games, Josh Hutcherson.
Okay.
I think is in it. Three series comedy. First season in particular is absolutely hilarious. But there's a point in the second comedy where they keep time looping into James Cameron's apartment or something like that. I think there is a mention of True Lies in there as well. So, yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Very good.
Mention that, but I did. All right. Your number 2.
My number 2 is the Harrison Ford film you mentioned. I think a little bit earlier, Clear and Present Danger. So this is probably quite high for films of 1994, but this is my list. I probably mentioned in the music one that I had a period where I was essentially bedridden with whooping cough. During that time, I picked up my first Tom Clancy book, which was Clear and Present Danger. I think the reason I picked it up was because it was the film tie-in cover and had Harrison Ford on it, and I thought I like Harrison Ford films. So come for the Harrison Ford, stay for the ultra militant views of Tom Clancy. Similar to yourself starting the Kevin Smith, Kevin Smith with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, starting Clear and Present Danger in terms of the book series. I think it's the 4th one, and I don't think I no doubt had seen Patriot Games, but didn't realize it was a Tom Clancy book. Meant that I was trying to connect the dots whilst reading, but I had plenty of time on my hands because I was in bed sick. So I was really keen to watch the film when it came out. I remember being very, very excited and then being slightly disappointed by the film when I first saw it, and was because classic 13, 14-year-old brain going, well, I just read this 500-page book. Why isn't everything in it in the film? And not realizing that different mediums require judicious editing and the need to tell a story in a 2-hour format. And so over time, I've come to enjoy it more and more. Um, it is it is very much a thinking man's action film. Um, there are a lot of scenes set in offices, on phone calls.
I was just about to say, as you were saying, and like
Yeah.
a thinking man's action film, like it's the office scenes in this movie like that are really tense and
Yep.
exciting, which are probably like the heart of the movie over like the action scenes where they're blowing up cars and all that sort of stuff. So you're spot
Yeah.
on. You're spot on with that analysis.
And the other problem that the film had at the time, and I know I'm sounding like I'm dissing it more than enjoying it, because it is a really great film, is they had such a great central set piece with uh, the the bombing of the cars that Harrison Ford's character is in when he first goes to Colombia. Um, Meant that they couldn't top that with the fight sequences at the end. And so you are then left with, some really great dialogue. It's things that would be absolutely throwaway in any other movie, but when you get something like at the start when the president says a line like a course of was a course of action I suggest is a course of action I can't suggest, which is a really great way of saying, well, I want to start this military operation, but I can't be the one that says it. And things like, and it's a quote I myself and other friends who have watched it still use today with the I have no recollection, Senator, which comes after the dueling computer. Hacking and deleting of files in the offices towards the back half of the film. Yeah, they're just really crackling dialogue. Some really tense scenes, and which is helped by people doing a lot of work, more than what they should. Things. Willem Dafoe is great. This is the first time I saw Willem Dafoe, I reckon. James L. Jones is great in it
I
as the
was gonna
mentor.
say it's the first time I remember seeing him in something that wasn't Star Wars.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So, and yeah, Harrison Ford, which helped continue this almost flawless batting average over a 12-year stretch. So, Clear and Present Danger, like I said, probably a little high, but I did watch it again recently and
Yeah,
quite enjoyed it.
it is a great film and
Yeah.
very rewatchable.
Mm.
So second, is second on your list?
Yes.
Yep, 6 on mine. All right. I'm a tad surprised you don't have this one. I thought it might come in high on your list, as my number 2 is Forrest Gump.
No, not on my list at all.
No, wow.
I've 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 turned off. It's not that I've turned off this film. I remember watching it quite a lot, 1994, and I'm now at a point where I actually have no interest in ever seeing it.
I can understand that to a sense. But I'm a true sucker, as you will know by my number 1, for those movies that tell a story over like a long period of time. So one I can mention.
Or in the case of Time Cop, different period of time.
Absolutely. One of my honorable mentions is Legends of the Fall, which is another similar vein style of movie where it tells a story over generations. Look, I don't know if Forrest Gump probably has, maybe not. I'm not probably using the right term here, but probably is like a song that's played on the radio tons of times. Yeah, it's great, but a bit sick of it. Show me or let me listen to something else. But
Yep.
I still put it on, and I still enjoy the movie.
Yep.
Tom Hanks is fantastic in this film. I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg was the director of this one.
No, Robert.
Oh yes, Robert Zemeckis, of course, who is a fantastic director. I know Jenny, the character, gets a lot of grief these days, seen
Mm.
as the villain of this movie. But Robin Wright, might have was she? I
Yep.
think she was Robin Wright, not Robert Wright Penn at this stage.
No.
She's fantastic in the role of
Mm-hmm.
Jenny. This is my first introduction to Gary Sinise as well. He
Yep.
was fantastic as Sergeant Dan. And then we got the scene about shrimps and just the big flowing long stories. I just love those type of movies, and
Yep.
Forrest Gump is one of the better ones.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it when it came out. It's and I think when we talked about the music episode, quite a lot of people mentioned the soundtrack as well, which is great.
It's got Vietnam War in it, which is a great period of music. So
exactly, which means you probably need to have 16 Doors songs on it, potentially. I think
Credence.
Or Credence. That's right. Bit of Fortunate Son. It always felt even in the rewatching, back in those days, like when you got to about 3/4 of the way through it, it then felt like the last sort of half hour was a journey, like a
I agree with that.
long journey. Yeah. And I think if it was a little bit shorter, like the whole him running scene, that I don't know. It's
I like that part.
What are we doing here? What are you doing here? It's what are we all doing here? Yeah. So, but I think in terms of
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. It's funny you say that because I remember on first couple of watchings that whole run was like you, that running scene, just like yeah, whatever. But in further watchings, I actually really find that quite hilarious to a sense, and that's the quintessential, Forrest Gump trait. Oh, I'll stop running now.
Yeah.
with a crowd of thousands of people behind him. So
yeah. But it's certainly, we talked about Harrison Ford's run. This whole run with Hanks is just. This must be the second Oscar in a row he gets, I think, because I think so, you get it the year before Philadelphia, and he's just about to do Toy Story, Saving Private Ryan, Apollo 13. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So no, I mean, and won Best Film at the Oscars as well. Yeah. So deserve
it. Oscars love these types of movies. So.
Oh yeah. It's pretty much things like this was what the term Oscar bait was created for.
Okay, so do we want to finish on our number ones, or should we do some honourable mentions before we get to our number ones?
We'll do let's do the honourable mentions, given that we both know what our number ones are.
Well, you gave those away.
Yeah, sorry, I did.
Yeah, that's a ranker's no.
No, I realise, but much like the film Pulp Fiction, it's done in non-linear fashion. It's similar to Time Cop.
What was the one that was your 11, almost made the top 10?
It was probably Reality Bites.
Yeah, I thought you would. I was like, he's definitely gonna have Reality Bites on his top 10.
Yeah. And yeah, speak about soundtracks.
Yeah,
phenomenal sound. So two others I want to mention. We talked about the trilogy of Jim Carrey films. Ace Ventura was this year as well. That's an honourable mention. And whilst it wasn't the Santa Claus, the Christmas film that I quite like from this year, and it's a film that I think you would like if you haven't seen it. It's called The Ref, with Dennis Leary, Kevin Spacey, and Judy Davis, and a bunch of other character actors. J.K. Simmons is in it. Christine Baranski. The Ref is about Dennis Leary. Is a cat burglar. Is robbing this place on Christmas Eve. The place is owned by a feuding couple, played by Kevin Spacey and Judy Davis. They're going through couples counselling. He then takes them hostage, and then her family arrives, and it's just chaos ensues. It's very, very funny. It's Leary at peak Leary. I think this is maybe a year after Arsehole came out.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, speaking of Leary, because he topped the Triple J Hottest 100. Was it
Yeah,
93 or 94?
I think it was in 94 for 93.
Yeah.
From I could be wrong there, but yeah, the ref, very little watched film, but one that I quite enjoy. So that were my three honourable mentions.
Okay. Well, I've already mentioned Legends of the Fall.
Mm.
It's Brad Pitt. Is it Anthony Hopkins?
Yep,
Um, and
and
some
Aidan Quinn.
Aidan Quinn. That's right.
Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn. Don't know.
One of the Quins.
One of the Quins. I went to
It's
a
not.
school. I went to school with a guy called Aidan Quinn. So
It's not really quintessential that you know which one anyway.
uh, see what you try
Now,
to.
interesting of your thoughts on this one. The River Wild was one that I considered for my top 10 as well.
The other Kevin Bacon film from this year, is it?
Yeah, I think it was Kevin Bacon the villain in this one, and Meryl Streep and her family are
Yeah,
going down on a whitewater rapids
that
sort of
sounds about
scenario.
right.
Yep.
I
really
remember watching it once, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's another really enjoyable film for a bit of a thriller.
Yep.
Now you mentioned that there was one that you hadn't seen that you wanted to see, Quiz Show.
Yes.
Did you end up watching it?
No, I still haven't had a chance yet. So
yeah, it's been a long time since I watched that one, but it's a quality movie.
Mm-hmm.
I also had here Disclosure.
Oh yes.
So Michael Douglas and Demi Moore.
Yes.
So like reversing that sexual harassment where the female is the predator there. And Junior as another.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Schwarzenegger,
that was a fun one back in the day. All right,
what was that?
You're leading us. Hey,
what Junior, was that another Ivan Reitman one?
I think so.
Yeah.
But it was Schwarzenegger and DeVito who were teaming up around that time.
Genius.
All right, well, you're leading us off today. Why don't you talk us through Pulp Fiction as your number one?
Yes, you had number 5, was it? Something like that?
Yes, 5.
Thereabouts. Yeah, we don't need to really talk too much about Pulp Fiction. This is what put Tarantino on the map. I think also that this same year, was it Natural Born Killers came out as well, which he wrote, but I think it was heavily changed, and maybe True Romance was the year before. He'd also had Reservoir Dogs done, but this then became, the year of Tarantino, and for better or worse. And I think we may have talked about this with something else recently. All the copycats that came after it. I think it was when I mentioned Jeff Buckley's Grace, actually. So it's probably quite apt that, given that was my number one, that Pulp Fiction is my number one here, because it then was the blueprint for a ton of other films that came out. None of them that were ever anywhere as good as Pulp Fiction. Was the reemergence of Travolta. Yeah. Bruce Willis also was going through a bit of a fallow period just before. Samuel Jackson been in films for years, but this was his star-making turn. And also, the emergence of Uma Thurman.
And the foot fetish.
And the foot fetish. But so many quotable lines. The soundtrack is great. There's not much more I need to really speak about Pulp Fiction. It is an absolute classic, and there is very few directors where you can pretty much go sight unseen, or I don't even need to know the plot. I'll go watch a Tarantino film. Helped by the fact that he's only helmed 9 feature length films. Which I think is almost as much as James Cameron has done in his lifetime. So Pulp Fiction, my number one.
Yeah, it's really the first movie where I really enjoyed that. Like not a linear story, just all the pieces just being put together in different ways. Yeah, it's such a great film.
It is. Yeah.
All right. So my number one, which was your number 4.
4. Yep.
Is 1994 album. My favorite album of all time comes from that year, which was The Offspring Smash. My favorite movie of all time also comes from 1994, which is The Shawshank Redemption. As you mentioned earlier, a Stephen King adaptation from a short film. Actually watching something the other day, I think, where Stephen King only wanted $10,000 or something for this one because he was so impressed with the way that they did the movie. And then after he watched the movie, he gave it back to the director and put it in a glass, a framed glass thing, and said, break if for emergencies, that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, this is probably Tim Robbins' best known film. I was also looking at something on it the other day where before they started filming, they got Morgan Freeman to narrate all of his narrated parts, and they
Mm-hmm.
would play it over speakers as this, or when the scene's going or whatever, so that everyone
Right.
could get the feel of how the scene was going. But apparently there was some static in the background, so they couldn't use the takes. He did all of his narration in one take. Apparently, it took like 3 hours, but then
Right.
they had to go back and redo all of his narration, which I think took something like 34 days or something like that to
Yeah.
get it right to fit into the film. Again, one of those movies which I love, which goes over a long period of time. So telling a story over not just an hour or a day or a week, it's telling a story over generations in essence. Um, and the evolution of Andy Dufresne as a character, and a really interesting look at the inner workings of how jails work and the dynamics between certain type of prisoners, that sort of thing. And um, yeah, and Morgan Freeman's fantastic in this as well, and the part characters as well really make this film the great film that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. The I don't know how many times I've used the a reference around putting aside a poster and then there's a tunnel behind it. Um,
Yeah,
it's I think I used it quite a lot when my daughter was in kindergarten and would always come home with lots of sand in her shoes. And I was joking that there was a poster of Bluey up on the kinder wall, and there's a hole in it. She's tunneling away to freedom. Yeah, really great film. It's also been a little while since I've seen it. It is. I almost sort of had it in the for years in that Forrest Gump view of I don't think I need to see the Shawshank Redemption again. But it's above and beyond Forrest Gump because it is such a great film that doesn't have to rely on certain crutches to for the film to work, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Um, as you said, adapted from Stephen King short story, which came from a collection of four in the book, which also had the film, the short story "The Body," which Stand By Me came from as well. So, talk about bang for your buck
yeah,
from in terms of great tales to tell. And it's the side of Stephen King that I enjoy the most, which is the
agreed.
um, it's not the out and out horror. It's the horror, and this is
Of
where we
life.
start to go highbrow, exactly. The horror of the human psyche,
Yeah,
Kyle, um, and the depths that people will
such a
have to
yup.
go to. Whether it is incarceration for decades for a crime that he didn't
May
commit,
or may not have.
may or may not. Let's jury's still out. Or no, jury decided he did it. Or in the case of Stand By Me, the turning of adolescence and seeing mortality for the first time, and so it's a rich vein, and that's why a couple of years later, it's the same director and same writer and Stephen King where the Green Mile was done. Green Mile's a little bit more sort of sentimental and
Supernatural.
cloying,
Yeah.
and and a bit of supernatural. But Shawshank, as we were alluding to at the start, was one which wasn't a huge hit at the cinemas, but ended up having this huge second life as a video rental.
So, a question without notice: if
Mm,
the 1994 Oscars were being held this year,
yes.
do you think Shawshank Redemption would be a chance of winning it over Forrest Gump,
Uh,
or would Pulp Fiction take number one, or do you think
yeah,
Forrest Gump would still be the number one?
it's a good question. So I don't think Shawshank nominated
I
for
don't even think
anything.
it was in the nominations for best film. I mean, if it
Okay,
was, it didn't
okay.
vote very
So
high.
bear with me whilst I bring up the who won the Academy Awards that year in terms of the big one. So if it was being redone sight unseen, you would assume that I would guess Pulp Fiction would win it, but Shawshank, if they released the votes, Shawshank would be second. I think in particular in this day and age as well, you would have the backlash, like it's the social media backlash, and Forrest Gump wouldn't be seen as what it is. So I'm also thinking of the context of the current.
I'm just thinking of quality of film, not external. Because Shawshank wasn't a big hit in the cinemas, I think that let it down in its Oscar chances.
Yes.
Whereas it's probably got more of a second life through that video rental, and becoming because you could look at 100 different lists, and Shawshank would be the top of 78 of them.
Yeah.
So it's obviously highly rated by many people.
Yeah, and this is why and we've discussed this as well, where these sorts of which I know is quite funny for a show about ranking, particularly with films that the Academy Awards should be done after 5 years.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Yeah, so this year we'd be honouring the films from 5 years ago, because it has enough time to sort of sit and really really get a sense of what it is. I think in terms of I would imagine Morgan Freeman would have won Best Supporting Actor. Would be my guess. But yeah, I don't know if Tim Robbins would have won Best Actor.
I think that's still going to Tom Hanks.
To Hanks, yeah. But I can certainly see a world where Freeman wins Best Supporting.
Tarantino's probably up for Best Director though.
Tarantino's, I think
he get it.
Yeah, I think he was up for screenplay. But yeah, Shawshank would be in the conversation a lot more than what they were, because they weren't at all. I'd imagine. I'd imagine it would have been a more closer run race.
Yep. All right, that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like we've gone a tad over time here, but forgive us. We're talking about 1994, the greatest year in music and movies of all time.
Absolutely.
That was interesting. Really good. Surprised with some of your selections there, but overall, I think we've both come up with some pretty good lists.
Yep. No, good stuff. I will be checking out Time Cop very, very soon.
You'll be in for a treat. I'm not sure if we've got something lined up for our next ranking episode. We have to do something sport related. I'm not sure 94 may have been that strong in sport.
No, but it has been a while since we've done sport, so we might have to go back to it. Yeah,
absolutely. Let us know on socials what you think we should be ranking as far as sport-wise goes. It's an Olympic year. Maybe we want some sort of Olympic style ranking. Who knows?
Sounds good.
Well, thanks if you've stuck with us for over an hour discussing our favourite 1994 films. We might leave the 1994 theme there for a little bit. I am pretty keen to get to those soundtracks, so we might try that later in the year. Please suggest something to us if you've got something up your sleeve that you would like us to rank. Any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to say before we wrap it up here, Stuart?
Nope. All good. Although I am noting that apparently Freeman was up for Best Actor, and maybe he should have been in Best Supporting.
Did Tom Hanks win that one?
Yeah, Hanks won it. There you go.
All right, and Stuart, you got to keep them separated.
There you go.
All right, thanks. That's the rankers again, ranking the top 10 films from 1994. Let us know what you think, and we'll be with you hopefully soon. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Carl.